Ladies and gentlemen, over the course of this video, I want to introduce you to the Joe Dispenza meditation I use to brainwash myself to success. Now, with this meditation and with the strategies I'm about to give you, this is how I unlocked the ability to generate over 7 figures online in a year and overcome the self-sabotaging identity I had that was $80,000 in debt, smoking weed, and not doing anything to progress myself any further. Now, before I get into the meditation and the strategies I use to unlock this success, unlock this abundance, I want to introduce you to this two-sided concept that kind of dictates your future and which direction your life is headed in. Now, if we're going to kind of base all of the teachings for this video around Dr. Joe Dispenza, we're going to have to work in some of the foundational stuff that he talks about. I'm going to use a variety of different graphics to describe this information for you, all in the hopes that you'll be able to see it through a new lens or a new identity. Now, there are two states in which you exist. You either live in a state of survival or you live in a state of creation. Now, let's talk about the version of you that lives in a state of survival. The state of survival is a version of you, and we're going to call that version of you the old you. The state of you that lives in survival is a state that is rooted in the lower states of consciousness. Now, what are these lower states of consciousness and how do they impact your life? Now, at different levels, right, we experience anger, fear, guilt. Now, these are just some emotions categorized with lower states of consciousness, but this is why it feels like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders when you are in a state of survival. It is like you are anchored down. You're experiencing a more heavy reality, which is why you cannot do anything to create it, because you are using all of your energy to survive this state. Now, what is actually going on with this version of you? Now, we know that Dr. Joe says we create our reality through our thoughts and our emotions. And these thoughts and emotions are creating a subconscious pattern within our mind and our body. Now, what happens in these states is that your mind eventually becomes a slave to that of your body. And what happens is your body, the old you, becomes addicted to the reality you are creating at this level. Now, let's say there's a version of you that wants to start the business, wants to experience financial success, but every time you go to post that first video, to launch that first ad, to find that product you want to sell, it's like you hit an invisible ceiling. Now, that invisible ceiling is the version of you that will not let you pass this energetic realm. Now, why are you not allowing yourself to pass this energetic realm? Because you have become so addicted to the biological state you are creating for yourself that your body is doing everything in its power to keep you in homeostasis. Now, what is this homeostasis? Now, thoughts is the language of the mind, and emotions is the language of our body. And together, they create our electromagnetic frequency, right? Our electromagnetic frequency is our energetic state of being. And we are attracting things into our life in direct compensation to the frequency we are emitting. This is why we are always in a state of creation, except sometimes we can be in an unconscious state of creation. Now, as we progress through this, I'm going to give you the $1 million equation, how you can come into a state of awareness and use these 3 steps to unlock a version of yourself that has a clear path to effortless success and abundance, right? That's why I said, by the end of this video, I want to give you the tools to brainwash yourself to success. But before that, we need to understand how we can overcome this old version of ourselves. Now, what Dr. Joe Dispenza says is there are going to be 3 things that our new version of being must overcome and learn to transcend upon, right? He says, you must learn to think greater than these 3 things. And that's what we're going to break down. Now, if we bring back this old version of you, this old version of us is addicted to the familiar, right? Now, it's addicted because it's just experienced the thoughts and emotions so many times. This is what it thinks as homeostasis. So your body has memorized a frequency that is created through your thoughts and emotions. Now, these three things are what keep you anchored to that old version of you you're trying to grow from, right? Now, because this old version of you is scarce, it's fearful, it's anxious, it is looking for things to validate this reality, to restart the cycle of thoughts and emotions, right? If we have a thought, it's looking for something in the external world to experience, to lead to an emotion, which leads to that outcome again. This is essentially the cycle going down. Now, where are the places in reality that our old self, our ego, can play the victim card and do anything in its power to experience the familiar, right? So the old you is just familiar. It's what you're used to. It's what you've subconsciously programmed the repetition of thoughts, emotions, actions, behaviors, choices. Now, the first place is going to be your body, right? These are feelings. I'm going to put chemical here because this is what we need to understand. What we're feeling are impulses within our body. We need to learn to think greater than our body. When we think greater than our body, we realize, hey, when I feel like not doing something, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. It just means that this is a necessary step for me to overcome in order to manifest the version of myself I want to experience. When I was $80,000 in debt, I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. Because I was in such a low frequency, it was more dense. I was embodying frequencies of the material world, which is why it felt heavy, which is why I felt sluggish. Because I was using all of my energy to survive. I was such a victim and in so much pain and in so much fear and in so much worry. I was exhausting all of my energetic resources. Now, the first thing I had to do was learn to reclaim that energy. And there were three places that I had to reclaim the energy from. The first being the body and the feelings, right? The thoughts and emotions I was consistently identifying with. Your ego wants to identify with things. And the next place is the environment. I'm going to put people and places. Your body, after it's feeling certain things, if you learn to overcome those chemical sensations and those impulses of the mind and body, it is going to now look to the environment for things to derive this familiar experience, right? It's so addicted to the familiar experience, and your body is now the master through memorized thoughts and emotions that's going to do anything in its power to create homeostasis, even though it's negative, even though this homeostasis is scarce, it's fearful, it's anxious, it's draining all your energy and pulling you into denser states. It's merely a memorized frequency. Now, what Dr. Joe Dispenza says is the goal of meditation is to change. Because in states of meditation, we can start to disidentify with this version of ourselves. We begin to experience new versions of ourselves beyond our body, beyond environment, and beyond time, right? Time, the ego asks when, right? You get anxiety when you're not experiencing transformation. And what people neglect to see is that your manifestations are actually killed when you start to ask the question, is it happening? When's it going to happen? Because you're taking your energy, attention, and time away from the inputs that led to transformation. Now, how do we go from this state of survival? Everything right here is survival. Our goal is to go from survival to creation. How do we brainwash ourselves to success effortlessly? How do we start to repattern the subconscious mind? Now, here's the secret. In order to brainwash ourselves to success, we must meditate. And when we meditate, we become so conscious of the unconscious that we can begin to consciously choose a reality we want to experience. Now, if you want meditations in order to step into a state of creation, I want you to click the link in this video because I put together some custom meditations for you, a gift from me to you that I would have wished to have upon my journey. But you have to promise me one thing: before you do those meditations, finish this video and understand how important the meditation is going to be. So meditation is the tool we use to brainwash ourselves. Now, the goal with meditation, like I said, is to step into the present moment where we can begin to experience our new state of being. Now, if you stick with me here, I'm going to give you a 3-step equation that you need to use in the present moment to experience more abundance, more wealth, more success. And it's going to be a simple framework, and I promise you, it is going to allow you to experience more effortless success. Now, meditation is really the act of learning to create a gap between an impulse and an action. Because what happens? If the old you has a certain frequency and we experience a thought or emotion that wants to collapse that state of homeostasis again, what is it trying to get us to do? It is trying to get us to engage in a form of self-sabotage, but that self-sabotage is really just a reaction. Think about it. That's why it's called a cycle. I'm spiraling because I'm experiencing so many impulses and familiar thoughts and emotions. I'm spiraling into a denser state of energy through reactions. Now, what happens? If you can create space in between you and that reaction, you step into the present moment. Now, the present moment is where all creation exists. Now, to break it down a little bit, the present moment is the quantum field. So, in the present moment, we are tapped into 99.9%, I'm gonna go infinite potential. Now, if you re-engage with a reaction, you are actually living a state of the past. You are not experiencing anything new. You are just collapsing a familiar experience, a fear or judgment about yesterday, a worry about tomorrow, and all your energy is fragmented onto this timeline that is an illusion and does not exist. So you will never be able to experience success or create a path towards success if you are consistently brainwashing yourself to experience a past you want to move on from. Now, this present moment, this 99.9% infinite potential, it is where all versions of you exist. Now, what you didn't realize is when you were engaging with this reaction, you were unconsciously extracting a frequency from the quantum field, validating your experience further. Now, there is a version of you in the quantum field that is abundant, that is successful, that runs a business, that is resilient. But what is the main goal? Now, in order to step into a state of creation, we have to create a new version of ourselves. So it is not going to be a reaction. It is going to be a new action that we extract from this quantum field in order to experience a new reality. Because then we're starting to observe a version of ourselves that we want to experience. But now we need to understand some important traits about this state of survival. But once again, you need to understand what meditation is for. Meditation is for the brainwashing. Because we must first let go of the version of ourselves that we do not want to experience through becoming so conscious of the traits, habits, thoughts, emotions, choices, and beliefs that are keeping us stuck, that are keeping us anchored and consistently manifesting and creating the reality we want to move on from. As soon as we become aware of that, we create a gap of the present moment in between an impulse and a reaction. And from this present moment, we step into the infinite potential and we can extract a version of ourselves that is in a state of creation. Now let's break down the state of creation further so you know what it feels like. Because being in a state of creation and in a state of higher frequencies isn't necessarily that everything is always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Now, this version of you that is in a state of survival is a victim. This version of you that is in a state of creation exercises a sense of choice. Now, Grant, what does this mean? This means that as a creator, you are unlocking the ability to turn any obstacle into an opportunity. This is the mindset of a creator. The creator knows that they cannot control the uncontrollables. All they can control is their internal state. And they control their internal state through choice. And through choice, they become aware through meditation. And through this awareness, they align with the reality or the frequency, right? Your thoughts and emotions are the electromagnetic vibration of frequency that communicates with the quantum. Now, what are some no-brainer traits you want to start to manifest? It is not the fact that this version of you doesn't experience obstacles. It's actually the truth that this version of you that aligns with the higher state of consciousness realize everything actually is harmonious. When you start to realize everything is harmonious, we can dive deeper than all the neuroscience. We can dive deeper than all the metaphysics. We can get into the true essence of the nature of reality and the nature of your power as a creator. But on a basic level, to go from obstacle to opportunity is the growth mindset. And this version of you that is in a state of creation realizes that your power and your gift is the ability to experience the mystical, to transmutate any situation into something that serves you. When I was $80,000 in debt, I realized that it brought me to this moment of realization. It brought me to this aha moment, this awareness, this state of being that I could use to pull myself out of the gutter. I realized that all the weed I smoked, all the debt I was in, all the negative things that were happening in my life actually led me to the greatest realizations of my life. If it were not for those things, I would not be here as a content creator in front of you, choosing to share this wisdom with the world. Now, why is this so important? Because when I unlocked elevated states of consciousness, I realized that there is no separation, there is no illusion, and that as a creator, all I have to do is figure out why this obstacle serves me on a path of growth and leads to an opportunity to level up, to unlock a higher state of consciousness. Now, as a creator, how do we use this wisdom to manifest abundance? And I'm going to double back on a key concept. As a creator, let's break down the equation that you naturally will come to understand through subconscious reprogramming. Now, this $1 million equation, I'm just going to call it the $1 million equation, is be, do, have. Now, fundamentally, the reason this is so important is because the having aspect, the thing that people want to receive, the manifestation, is only 0.0001% of the spectrum of energy. Now, what is the 99.9%? Where does the infinite potentiality exist? Now, I want to show you guys how you unlock ultimate states of abundance effortlessly. Now, let's circle back to the survivor, the creation, all these different levels, these spectrums, these frequencies. What's actually going on? Now, if we look at the map of consciousness, the Tao is the highest frequency, right? It is the source. But in translation, for lack of a better word here, it's also the pure energetic potential, right? This is that 99.9% energy in which the abundant version of yourself lives. So, the secret is not a game of adding more to our life. I'm going to entirely ignore the lower states of consciousness. Boom. Let's say down here. We're ignoring that entirely. We are removing that from our concept of awareness. As soon as it is out of our concept of awareness, we can begin to invest our time, energy, and attention into a frequency of abundance. Now, what actually is this abundance? There's something that people neglect to understand about what's going on. This is what people neglect to understand. They are so focused on the receiving, right? What am I going to get? What's going to come back to me? They're cutting off the energy in the middle. You don't just get to take from the universe. And you are actually giving to the universe at all times. You are always in a state of creation, whether conscious or unconscious. Because think about it, energy works in a unique manner. This is why they say you get what you give. So, if you want to experience more success, more abundance, more wealth, more happiness, you need to be the source of that in your reality. You need to be the source of that in your own little universe. Because the more consistently you are the source, right? We're starting to look at the synonyms and patterns here. You are, through your thoughts and emotions, channeling that frequency. Because you are channeling that frequency through giving it, you're planting the quantum field with the thoughts, right? Thoughts carry energetic frequency in which it communicates. And what you get back in the form of experience is the electromagnetic frequency of emotion, the feeling that you extract from that quantum field. This is what you're communicating with the 99.9% pure energy. So your goal is to be. To be is a natural energetic state, right? What is abundance? Abundance is actually being grateful. When you are grateful, you have enough. You're saying, my glass is half full. When your glass is half full, you are more naturally in a state to serve, to give to the world. Someone that's in the Ascension workshop too said, hey, today I had my biggest sales day ever because I didn't need to do the deals. Because he didn't need to do the deals, he showed up in a state of service. For the people that actually needed it, he did not have an agenda. And for the people that didn't need it, he could just continuously move on and not have an emotional tie to it. Because he was already in a state of being. He was already being the person he knew he needed to be, which led to more effortless deals because he was attracting this more naturally. Now, let's look at the traits of the source. If it's pure energetic potential, it is abundant. Because from that state comes everything. But guess what? It's also no thing. Because it's just potential, it hasn't been observed or collapsed into physical matter yet. Because it hasn't been observed or collapsed into physical matter yet, it is no thing and everything at the same time, right? Everything as an energetic potential and no thing because it has not been observed or collapsed yet. Now, if you know that these are the traits of the source, this is why service is so important. And I talked about this in one of my previous videos, but one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Myron Golden, he's a man of God. I wouldn't say necessarily he's a religious man. He believes in a certain type of God, but what he says is that God tells us to be fruitful and multiply, right? If man was created in the image of God, that means God planted a seed within man that he needs to be fruitful and multiply with. And to be fruitful and to multiply is to embody the traits of the source. Because look at nature. Nature has enough for reproduction. It has enough to survive. It does not exist in the lower states of consciousness because the lower states of consciousness are an illusion. They're a construct of the ego. So we're starting to evolve beyond the Joe Dispenza concepts now. We're trying to tap into a new level of wisdom. On this journey, my goal is to bring you up into a more elevated state of consciousness so you can start to step into the natural flow of effortless action. One of the traits of the Tao is Wu Wei, which is effortless action, which is alignment. It's not the fact that you're not doing anything. It's not the fact that Jack wasn't out doing sales during the highest sales period of the summer. It was just that he wasn't doing it from a place of misalignment, from a place of force, where he needed the deal to happen. He did it from a place of alignment because he started to understand these concepts. He said, hey, if I'm just naturally abundant, if I already come from the source, man was created in the image of God, I come from the infinite energetic potential itself. That means beyond the concepts of the illusion, beyond the fact I have to pay bills, that I gotta make money, I by default am enough. I come from the source, which means he showed up as a more effortless, more attractive version of himself. Think about the paradox right here. The no thing, you need nothing, so you attract everything. That's because nothing is everything. So by being full, by having this concept, you are giving the energy of completion. You're giving the energy of unity. You're giving the energy of authenticity. one of one. You're embodying the traits of the source. Man was created in the image of God. So naturally, you're attracting abundance and everything to you. Think about it. When you don't want something that is magnetic, it is naturally going to find its way to you because it is the polar opposite of the spectrum. It is going to be immediately magnetized and collapse into your experience because you do not need it. You are not desperate for an outcome. Now, circling back to Myron Golden, be fruitful and multiply, he used the metaphor of an apple. Now, if I were to expand upon this metaphor, I would say, me and my friends, we were out on the west coast of California and we were camping and we were chilling, we were having a great time, and I was eating this apple. It was delicious, it was great. But when I was done, I threw the core into nature. Now, in that apple, there were 5 apple seeds. Now guess what? The seeds were planted. The roots had to grow into the ground, which is a lesson about faith. Roots must grow into a place we cannot see yet before something sprouts. Now from those 5 apple seeds did not just come 5 apples. There came 5 apple trees. This is why God tells us to be fruitful and multiply, because it is our natural state. But you need to be giving at all times. This is the secret. This is how energy flows. Energy comes in a back and forth type manner. It was crazy because I had money locked up in my payment provider, and I was like, that's a lot of money. I would love to have that right now, but I still had to pay a lot of money in taxes. So I said, hey, I'm just gonna pay the money because I know that money needs to flow before it can come back to me. That day, boom, I paid the taxes and I said, money's gonna come to me. I got a text that night from one of my team members saying, hey, Stripe just freed up your money. And I was like, that is crazy. Because it was literally the bridge of incidences that I talked about in the Neville Goddard video. It was a synchronicity in action. But it was all because I was being and I was embodying the frequency. I was saying, I understand this natural ebb and flow. When you understand this natural equation of the universe, the be do have is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about when he says thinking to doing to being. It's from philosopher to initiate to master. You can only know and think about it so much. Now, the doing, the actions, naturally arise out of the state of being. Because if you are being abundant, if you are being in a state of service, if that's actually who you are, then the conversations you have with individuals, the actions you take, the energy you give subconsciously is going to be of that frequency. You are naturally emitting that. Not only are you attracting it, but the only reason you're attracting it is because you're giving it. This is what everyone tries to skip. You have to give the energy through the practice because the being leads to doing and the doing leads to having. But everyone has the equation messed up because they think that, hey, once I have X, Y, and Z of the material world, the illusion, the 0.001%, then I will do the things and be the person. No, that's not how it works. You have to give first. By default, you are giving your state of being to the world, right? This abundance. You're embodying the traits of the elevated states of consciousness. Then you're getting that back in the form of micro and macro experiences. But this is why people spiral when they start to attain success. Success becomes unattainable when you are in an outcome-based thought form, because the outcome-based thinking means, hey, once I have the thing, I'm eventually going to be the person that I've always wanted to be. No, that's when self-sabotage kicks in, because you realize it wasn't what the thing you were looking for. That actually the thing you were looking for to fill your heart and fill the void that the ego was lacking was just becoming the person you needed to be the entire time. That's why success is unsustainable for some people, because they're doing it for a sense of outcome. They're doing it for a sense of validation. But if you just become the energetic source and you're giving to life itself at all times, if you're always in that state of giving, giving is a signal of abundance. Abundance is saying, I have everything I need, which means I'm so abundant, I have enough to give. If you're saying I have everything, you're embodying the traits of no thing. That's the paradox, right? That's where the particle and the wave collapse out of the 99.9%. No thing and everything exists at the same time. Because you're abundant and you have everything, you're gratitude based in thought, you need nothing, which means you become most magnetic form of energy. And this most magnetic form of energy always has stuff to give. So everything by default is naturally going to come back to you. This is the illogical energetics that your ego is going to try and talk yourself out of. But I promise you, the most rewarding thing in the universe is to give. The more you give, the more you're going to get in return. Just trust me. This is energetics. I'm looking to push the boundaries of this space. I'm looking to push the boundaries of these teachings. I'm looking to take stuff that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about and evolve it into my level of understanding, evolve it through other teachers like Dr. David R. Hawkins in the Map of Consciousness and other forms of energetics. Because if we can understand all of this, then this is going to be how we naturally overcome the old version of ourselves. We're going to be like, hey, because I experienced this, I know that that old version of me is scarce. That old version of me, I just need to let go of. I need to remove from my frame of awareness because this is my natural state. This is your natural state because you are born from the immaterial of pure energetic potential. My material body right now is still energy. It's just lowered into a denser state of matter, right? That 3D realm. Now, the way I control my energetics is through thoughts and emotions. So at the end of the day, if you want to brainwash yourself and experience more success, the Joe Dispenza meditation is actually an act of learning to brainwash yourself. And you learn to brainwash yourself when you learn to create a gap in between who you were and who you want to be. You're saying, I no longer identify with this unconscious version of myself that isn't serving me. I no longer identify with the scarcity. I no longer identify with the anger. And the only reason you're able to do that was because you're meditating. You learned what it was to create a space of present moment in between you and a reaction. And in that present moment, you were able to step into your power as a creator and choose new thoughts and emotions through new understandings that allowed you to be, do, have of the highest frequencies of the universe. Now, once again, if you want the actual meditations, because that was a big request in one of my last videos, click the first link in the description. They're free, merely a gift and an offering from me to you. And if you like this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.